Welcome to the Eye on Annapolis Local Business Spotlight. There are thousands of locally owned businesses in the area, some small and some large. Some you may know and others you don't. But one thing they all have in common is a great story, and we want to share it with you. Join us every Saturday as we talk to the founders, the owners, and the managers of local businesses you have come to know and love, and those you will come to know and love. Now here's your host, John Frenay, with this week's Local Business Spotlight.
Well, we're back over here in West Annapolis, which is always such a great little community anyhow. But we are together today with Allison Scarinzi and Chelsea Tarleton, who are part of Lotus Psychotherapy, which has I don't want to say an outpost, but a second location called the Refuge right here in West Annapolis. How are you guys today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Let's talk a little bit about this. I mean, we've got two sides to the business, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Lotus Psychotherapy, and that main office is out on Bellerive Road, and I think it's got an Annapolis 21409 zip, but I'll call it Arnold.
Yeah.
Sort of out on the Broad Neck Peninsula. And then you've got another practice, or the same practice, but another location called the Refuge right here on Ridgely Avenue in West Annapolis. What's the difference between the two?
Yeah. So Lotus Psychotherapy off Bellerive Road, that's more of our outpatient hub. So that is where clients go to see their outpatient therapists. So that's for weekly therapy every other week. And then the Refuge is where we facilitate our IOP group treatment.
Okay. What's IOP?
Intensive Outpatient Program.
Okay. Are you guys going to be throwing like acronyms at me all day?
We might.
Well, I mean, we all know about psychotherapy. I mean, it's mental health. And that is a pretty broad brush. What do we do here?
That is a great question. What do we do here? Goodness. So in terms of if I just start with like the mental health counseling piece, right? It's a very clinical relationship that we get to have with our clients. And so sometimes they come and they're wanting something very specific. So that might be EMDR work or brain spotting or family conflict. And what we've created is an opportunity for therapists to celebrate their specialties. So if a therapist wants to specialize in EMDR
There's another acronym.
Yep.
What's that mean?
Eye movement, rapid desensitization,
Okay.
reprocessing.
Wow. Okay. And you said therapist. How many therapists do you have here?
17.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's a lot of people. Let's talk to Chelsea real quick. I mean, how long have you been with Lotus?
Since late April, May.
Okay.
Late April or May. Yeah, I came on.
And your specialty? I mean, I'm assuming with 17, you specialize. I mean, you may children, teens, adults, or is it specific areas of mental health that you?
Personally, I do not have a specialty on paper. I've done it all. I was a school therapist. I did crisis work. I have experience way
All
back,
over.
throughout my career. Right now, I practice very generally. Allison also, all of our clinicians we practice with the trauma-informed care. So throughout our, kind of interview process and bringing on someone to the practice, it's a huge focus to have some kind of background in trauma-informed care that says you have the ability to help, kind of any client that could come into the practice, right? That says like, I do have the skill level to deal with these problems that we are being faced with.
What is like a trauma-informed care? I mean, what's trauma? I mean, I know in the medical sense, okay, I mean, you've gotten into a bad car accident and your organs and stuff are badly damaged, your body's badly damaged. Same thing with the brain?
Essentially, yeah.
Seen something, you've experienced something, and it's caused a trauma in your life. Is that the real basic definition of sort of a trauma care?
Exactly. And, and then where does it manifest in your body, in your life? Where is it coming out? Where is it causing dysfunction now? Where are you seeing this? Do you have heightened anxiety in certain situations? Do you have low mood, low motivation, work performance issues? Was there some kind of pivotal moment that happened? And that's not to say that everything we see is trauma-based, right? Like, I think that word gets thrown out there a lot now, but it is to say that, like, we have created also within these 17 therapists, a safe space for anyone to kind of come to us and bring any of their issues to the table. Sometimes you don't even really recognize what your trauma has been or what you really have gone through until you start talking about it. Like you mentioned, like, a lot of things get swept under the rug for a long time. Sometimes the therapeutic process is a lot of those have come to the surface to say like where you could function better.
I've heard a number of different stories from friends of mine that it's, they've gone into a therapy or into a counseling type of the situation, and it's like the dam breaking. It's just,
Right.
okay, here I am. I don't know who the hell you are. So you're a stranger, you're a safe person. We're in a safe space to be able to do it. And okay, let's let this out and see what you can do to help, and I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I mean, you guys aren't curing, quote unquote, because nobody can see that anything, but you're just helping folks to work through their issues, to manage any kind of issues they have, and possibly allow them to cure it themselves. I mean, if there was a cure, I mean, you'd probably be prescribing a pill. Okay, so you have...
I wouldn't have a wait list.
Yeah.
There was an exact cure, yeah.
That's just so huge to be able to, be that somewhat anonymous shoulder, the non-judgmental shoulder to cry on, and to be able to do it. I mean, it takes a special person to want to do this. And, I'm sure that you hear plenty of stories, and I imagine you probably go home and, wow, because I know my daughter is somewhat in this room. She does human trafficking for North Carolina, so she investigates that. And, some of the stories that she tells me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just, and I like to think that we live in Annapolis. This is just this nice little bubble of a nice little town, and that stuff doesn't happen here. That's just my own little defenses that are going up saying that I live in this nice little bubble, but it's happening down the road. And I've seen that with, drug addiction as well. I've spoken with, do you guys know Angel Trainer by chance, who owns Serenity Sisters?
For this week.
One time we talked to Angel, and we were talking about the opioid and the availability of like heroin and stuff like that. And I said, okay, here we are in Annapolis. I said, if I give you $50 or whatever it costs for, how long would it take you to get me some drugs? And I said, I can be back in 10 minutes. I said, what about South County? She says, it's a little bit more rural. I need 20 minutes. What about Serena Park? I'll be back in 5. It's just something that we're dealing with. And I mean, thankfully, we've got places, like Lotus Psychotherapy, as well as the Refuge.
And that's what I've really, like, why I love being a part of this organization is because we actually offer, several different levels of care, right? We talked about our office in Bella Reeve that has the outpatient hub, and you go there to see your individual therapist and process your individual issues one-on-one. And then here at Refuge, we have our IOP,
right,
intensive outpatient. And Michelle is actually the coordinator of our IOP program. And that's where we bring together, kind of marry the two, right? Like we have this like group sense, but it's a small group, right? It's no more than 15 people. And a lot of those co-occurring issues is what we focus on here at the Refuge.
And you say you've got groups. I mean, you do have, for lack of a better word, I'm sure it's probably not the proper one, but group therapy.
It is. Yeah, that's the word.
So, I mean, and that's where folks that have a similar, background or trauma that they've gone through, that they can work support off of one another with the assistance of a therapist to sort of guide them through.
Correct. So it kind of goes by, in our world, like a level of care. So if your symptoms are prevalent enough that they are affecting your day-to-day life, say they're affecting your work, say they're affecting, your relationships, but there's something debilitating about your symptoms that needs a higher level of care. So we offer also in-house our IOP program that says, what is going on? It's 3 days a week. It's 3 hours per session. And that addresses, like I said, co-occurring. So both substance use, mental health, and you're with a therapist and you talk through whatever. We usually have a topic of the day or like a lesson of the day, right? It's created to address both this mental health component and the substance use component.
And I'm going all over the place here because I'm just absolutely fascinated by, what is the average, or is there an average time in therapy? Okay, let's say that I am, a first responder, and I just saw something really horrible or whatever it may have been, and and I'm like, this really messing with my mind and everything else. And I know that, and I come here for help. I mean, is this something that is a long-term ongoing type of a thing, or is this something that's like, okay, let's chat for a month and a half and see what we can do?
Well, I'll give my opinion first. I always like to see people in therapy at minimum for 6 months.
Okay.
It's ideal, especially if there's trauma involved, to have them in therapy for at least a year. That is just because, your first month is you don't even know who you're talking to, really. Both ways. The client is
Oh, sure.
not really sure about you, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I help them? And so that is my opinion. I've worked with clients now sometimes for years. You can drop back sessions that says I am only seeing them twice a month. And then I've seen clients once a month when things are going great. And then sometimes I don't see them for a few months and they come back. So that's the great thing in the therapy realm, is where you can build a relationship with a client, and it'll always ebb and flow. But it's our goal to also have that relationship that if they need you, you are available.
I see that. My uncle was an alcoholic, and I know when I had gotten married, he was having some tough times with the booze at the wedding. All of a sudden, Uncle Drew was gone in the middle of the thing, and he was able to go to, I think it was probably an AA meeting or something like that, to be able to talk through it, to get him through that, which makes sort of sense that he's fine, he's maintaining, he's got a meeting every month or whatever it may be, and all of a sudden now something comes rushing back to me, and I'm feeling weak, and he had the ability to go back and say, hey, help me out here.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your thought as far as the length of time in therapy? And I guess, Allison, the thing I wanted to ask you too is, since you are the founder and the one that started this, how horrible is insurance?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being horrible. Look, it's not easy to navigate insurance, but mental health is a right.
Yeah.
Mental health treatment it's a human right. And so to provide accessible services is simply just a value that we have here.
I mean, is that something that, does a patient run up against the maximum? I mean, we talked to Chelsea, said, I'd like to see somebody for a year, and my policy says, well, I'll pay for half a dozen sessions. That's just a really horrible thing for an insurance company to do. I mean, I'll crap on the insurance companies. You say during any do it.
We can totally take a second there and crap on the insurance companies too. I mean, so there are certain subsidiary plans and carve out plans that will place limitations, although that's very seldom. So for outpatient, it's unlimited, so long as there are mutual goals that are being met, and there are symptoms that are managed and regular attendance, then there's no barrier. So I've had some of the same clients for the past 5 years. So I've seen them through funerals, weddings, babies, life events, graduating college, graduating high school. So, it's a really unique, and I know you had mentioned earlier, and it really caught my attention, and just, how I think being in this field for a period of time, we forget how much we really do. We are sort of these beacons, these pillars of hope, and our job is to listen and talk for a living, and to really critically pay attention and to listen and to support clients. I also have found just the process, specifically in outpatient therapy, over years, to be just kind of sacred space, right? Because as adults, and we're always evolving. So every year might have a theme. There might be a substantial loss. There might be a major car accident that happens. And so our job is to hold space and to continue to show up for our clients and offer the best care we possibly can for whatever it is, whatever phase of life they're going
Whatever
through.
their season is right now.
Every season. Yep.
Wow.
Mm.
And as I think about my own life, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's, you've got anything could be, stress inducing or, affecting your mental health. But I mean, you look for, you got school, you got the pressure to do good, you got the pressure to be on the team, you got graduation, you got college, you got a job, you got marriage, you got kids, you got, the whole, divorce, you lost a job, but, the whole, wow. I sit there and I look and how did, even my generation get, through this without this? I mean, because it was such a
taboo.
Well, it was a taboo, but it was an afterthought, which is really really kind of depressing now at this point in 2025 to sit there and think, well, that's just what it is. I mean, you look at the kids with ADD and ADHD and stuff like that. Oh, he's just a hyper kid. Just tell him to sit down, shut up, and do his math homework. As opposed to now realizing that there's children learn differently and they behave differently and everything else. And it's we live in a much better world, but a much more challenging world. And I think you talked about privacy. This is a private, safe place to be. And in today's world, I mean, I don't honestly right here. I don't have expectations of privacy. I think my bathroom, my bedroom, and maybe my car. But I mean, when I'm down the road at Naval Bagels, I expect that there's cameras there. I expect that we don't have that level of privacy that we had 40 years ago. And when you come into something like this is something where you can let your hair down and you can really let loose. And I think that's just a huge, huge value to anybody's brain. How did you jump into the therapy biz and decide I wanted to open up a practice and have 17-ish people working?
Yeah, and have multiple licenses through Behavioral Health Administration and a CARF accreditation. And yeah, that's funny because this was never planned. This has been completely accidental. I found myself in a pivotal moment where I wanted to, leave some agency work and wanting to do private practice and really just focus on doing clinical outpatient therapy. Then the pandemic hit. So lost my office, moved everything virtually, did walking, talking sessions, and I was in network with most insurances. So I reached out to a couple of former colleagues and just, trusted and vetted therapists that I've known for, a long period of time. You stick around and practice in a certain area long enough, you get to know a lot of people, right? Sure. And so they told their friends and their coworkers. And then a year later, we had an office. So that's where we started and was in Bellerive. So that's always kind of maintained the space as more of our outpatient hub. And then what happened was I was doing supervision with a couple of clinicians, and we continued to see some local changes with other businesses that offered intensive outpatient programming, had changed throughout the course of COVID, and clients really continued to struggle with relapse. And so we decided to go ahead and get the CARF accreditation so that we can offer an actual treatment program to kind of fill the gap in services that are within this area. And then after the adult IOP program got up and running and filled out and stabilized, then December of 2023 is when we started the adolescent intensive outpatient program.
How is the demographic slide as far as adults and children or adolescents? And I mean, I'm going to make an assumption that there's probably a lot more adolescents that are coming in. Is most of your practice, or is it split half and half, or is it?
I would say it's a good mixture. We have a lot of adolescents that come our way because we're really the only adolescent intensive outpatient program that I've found in the area. So our program for adolescents is full for the most part consistently. A lot of times once the clients graduate, then we have somebody else who's coming to take their place. In terms of the adults, I think we see a lot of, I've been in the field for 15 years, and I get a lot of you guys are in person. We really want in person. There's always clients coming through the door for both adults and adolescents. So I would say it's a good mixture of both.
Yeah, the online and the telehealth is okay. In person is much better there. I mean, what is the intensive outpatient program involve? I mean, in a psychotherapy realm, some people might sit there and think, okay, well, we've got probes going into the heads and we're doing all sorts of crazy things like that. I mean, and other times you might think that it's just something that it's intensive, meaning more frequently. And is that?
Yeah, more frequently. So our intensive outpatient program is 9 hours a week for adults. And we offer a morning and an evening component. So that way clients who might not be working right now or who have more of a flexible schedule can come in the mornings, just, up and early, come to IOP. But we also offer an after work program too from 6 to 9 p.m. And so in that level of care, while you're living at home, you might still be struggling with cravings. You might still be stabilizing your mental health on medications. You might still be looking for a therapist. We have a lot of clients who come to us and they're like, we know what this IOP acronym means, but we don't know what else we might need. So a lot of clients start in IOP and then get linked with other services. So that's where the intensive part comes, because you're spending 9+ hours a week really just looking at yourself, picking apart your brain, talking about your mental health, talking about your substance use, figuring out what's triggering you or where these cravings are coming from. But then you're doing it in a group setting with other people who are going through the exact same thing.
It sounds like it could be just healthy for anybody to do that, to really sort of take a inventory of your brain, if you will.
Yeah, we get a lot of clients here that they just want to be around other people like them. They want to be around other people, and we hear often, like, this is our only safe space to talk about this stuff, and we like to talk about it with others.
You just threw a light on. I'm divorced. I've got 3 kids. They're all blown and grown now at this point. But I remember when my ex-wife and I divorced, it was somewhat hush-hush. You don't want, there's a failure and all that kind of stuff. But when the kids went to school, I remember my son come home one day, and he was just happier than a pig in a poke. And I said, did you know that so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so in my class, their parents are divorced too?
Uh-huh.
And it was just, it was such a relief to him to know that, hey, I'm not the oddball with the parents that are separating.
Yeah.
That there's other people here that, yeah. And I mean, it was totally out of the blue that it came through. And I mean, we tried to make sure that, the school said, okay, well, we'll let the teachers know you're separating. And I'm like, no, let's not do this. Let's find if there's a problem, then we'll talk about it. I mean, there's no sense in telling them about a problem that doesn't exist at this point.
Right.
It was really very interesting to see when he said, hey, I don't say he liked it, all these, but it was like, I'm not alone.
Yeah. And we hear that a lot. Like, it's so nice to be around other people. Like, I'm not alone in this. And it's so cool as a group leader and running groups just to see like you said, the smiles and, them light up when they realize, hey, there's other people in this room going through this too.
I'm curious, I don't know which one of you wants to address it, but I mean, also the, LGBTQ plus has blossomed. And I mean, I can't imagine going through life having to be, I guess, I don't know, in the closet or, not in the feeling like you're the right gender. And I can't imagine what that's like. But now that it's become, again, back in my generation, it was like, oh my God, he's gay, but it's not like that anymore. I mean, are you finding that is this a group of clients that, are you finding a lot of LGBTQ plus people are looking to get through?
I know, speaking from a group perspective, I just can think of a number, like I can see them, a number of people in our program that are part of the LGBTQ community. And we often hear just how welcoming and supported they feel. And, addiction and mental health doesn't discriminate. And so we have a handful of clients and they feel safe enough, I think, in the program to express their issues and talk about it. And often it blossoms a lot of good education for those who maybe aren't a part of the community to be able to just understand better and relate a little bit better.
It's such a simple solution to most of the problems. It's just we were all a little bit more understanding, a little bit more patient. We could put you guys out of business.
Well, I think also to just piggyback on what Michelle says, what's really cool about our group process is we're small. Right? We have to stay small. And in that small group setting is where you really see someone for who they are. And all those walls and all those kind of, judgments just really quickly fade away when you're just with someone one-on-one, and then there's a group of 4, and then there's a group of 5. And then, you start to get to know each other. And that's when I think it is so empowering to then go out into the community and say, I can operate as myself, because you have that experience operating in a small group setting. And I think that is what I've seen a lot since working here. And Michelle and her IOP team have done such a great job with making everyone feel so safe. So then they are transitioning to that next phase of life of like regaining employment, building relationships, everything, all those healthy markers that we want to see to have them graduate or move on, or kind of like your question earlier, like how long are you in therapy?
Right.
Well, we want to improve. Like we want to hit some of these things. So I think Michelle and all of our IOP counselors have created such a safe space for people to come and really share, and then they can kind of go for it.
That's really wonderful. Again, I've got a good friend of mine who's probably 60, and he lived 56, I don't know what it reminds the little kids stuff, but 50 plus years, married, 2 kids, the whole 9 yards, and realized that he'd been gay all of his life. And it was sort of and you hear that story an awful lot of times.
Yep.
But, he came out to some close friends, and he said, oh my gosh, it was so liberating. And so, it was, you let the pressure valve off. And he said he was very worried about work, and work was a non-issue. And that's a lot of things we do. We get worked up about stuff that's ends up being non-issues, I think. Can get our mind, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible. This is going to be horrible. When my wife and I, my ex-wife and I divorced, we're like, okay, well, let's go tell the kids we're down in Manja, downtown Main Street. And we're like, okay, well, this is the deal. And they're like, what's taking the pizza so long? And we're like, well, okay, well, I guess that's that. People process things in so many different ways.
Right.
And I think that's got to be something really difficult and challenging for you in how people process different things. Is that, how do you adapt to that?
I think just it's all like kind of your clinical experience. I think we've all been there. All three of us have actually worked crisis work where we've had to adapt to many different situations where clients are presenting very different circumstances. I come from the kind of theoretical background of like, you have to kind of meet the client where they're at, meaning, there's obviously a lot that we need to work on, but maybe perhaps they're not ready to deep dive or work on that yet. So I think it's really important for who is in front of you on that day at that time to work with that person and not push them to work or deep dive anymore into what they're not ready to, or not race ahead and say like, okay, I want to go apply for 6 jobs later today. It's just kind of like being that safe person to say like, okay, let's just take a deep breath sometimes.
No, I love that, Chelsea. And just to kind of piggyback off of that, I think what we get to do here is, because we are small and we provide such intimate, close care, we get to really see and witness where clients get stuck in their own process. So if we think about processing in terms of bottom up, so we're also looking at the entire body, and then top down, we're also taking into consideration like how they think. And so sometimes when we really get, especially I'm sure Michelle gets to see this in IOP, we get to really see the barriers to processing whatever it is that they're going through, right? And so that can show up as like old trauma. It can show up as neurodivergence, and there's been a whole wealth of information for, the last, 10 years on neurodivergence, and a huge understanding around the 7 components of the executive functioning and what they do and what happens when that motherboard is not wired correctly, right? It's a processing disorder. So it's been really, really cool to kind of be able to see, the barriers to clients like processing and unpacking, and like what shows up there is going to be different for everyone.
Well, you guys are therapists?
Yeah.
Psychologists type, but you're not a psychiatrist. Okay. So you're not writing prescriptions?
We have 2 psychiatric nurse practitioners.
Okay.
So what we've created is essentially a one-stop shop. So clients can have family therapy with us. They can have couples therapy with us. They can have an individual therapist. They can meet with a nurse practitioner for psych meds. They can receive intensive outpatient programming.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we even started offering some coaching services as well.
I mean, it is.
Even care. Yeah, we're growing all the time.
Yeah.
It's like as soon as we create a program or come up with something, we start getting calls about something else. And that's been the cool thing about being small, is that we can create these programs to meet the needs of the community. So Like we created individual therapy practice, then we needed groups. So we created the adult IOP. Then we began to get calls about adolescents. So it's like as soon as one program's up and running and the word is out, then the next call comes in for the next, and so on and so forth. So we just keep trying to meet the need.
But I think it's wonderful that you're, sort of meeting the community where they are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as we look at mental health is more, I don't want to say more recognized, but I mean, it's impacting younger and younger people. What are the signs that parents are missing? What are the signs that parents should look for that their child might need to talk to somebody that's not mom or dad that's going to...
I think that's we could all probably have different perspectives.
And I want all of them.
I know for me, a big thing is isolation. When a child, any assessment I've done with an adolescent, I often hear from the parents, my child's isolating, my child is not talking to me. And that's generally a sign something else is going on, I've realized. Another big struggle that our adolescent program has is the vape, nicotine vapes, marijuana vapes. Those are just sweeping Maryland by storm. I don't want to put all of Maryland in there, but at least in this area. And so there's a lot of secrecy involved, and there's a lot of suspicion. And so I think I don't know if they're missing the signs as much as just this disease just gets more cunning and more just secretive all of the time.
I think from the parents that I've also spoken with, they're trying their hardest to be like, I want them to talk to me. I want to know what is going on. I would say from a school perspective and working in schools for a long time, I think every adolescent is touched by some mental health at some point. And I think, the disadvantage right now is that a lot of schools don't have the proper personnel to really tackle a lot of the kids' mental health issues, right? So school counselors are overwhelmed. School therapists are, those jobs are sugar cut all the time.
Sure.
So there's really that's really an underserved population, like as we would see in the adult population, like, oh, this is a really underserved population. I think all kids are underserved because they don't have the services that, they could benefit from. So I don't know if it's necessarily what parents are missing. Definitely isolation, but it's hard when you see parents come to you and they're like, we're trying, and it's
right.
And it's like, I feel that. Like, I feel that you were trying so hard and you were up against such so much conflict in your household that this has brought on.
Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, we're recording on a stupid iPhone. I mean, I think, technology has really played a big thing. I mean, I know that, and certainly COVID has not done any favors for anybody's mental health, just to be able to get back into the idea of socializing.
Right.
And I know my youngest daughter is in communications in Manhattan, but I mean, when she was a junior in high school, it was like, okay, I'm going out on a date. Here's $20 for the pizza. The pizza's ordered. She said, well, can't you wait till the pizza gets here? I'm like, why? She says, well, because I don't want to answer the door and talk to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's she's gotten over that. But I mean, I was like, well, no, look out the peephole. If there's a guy with a pizza, give him the $20 and, have at it. It's simple.
Right.
So the isolation is probably, you think, the big thing to look after. And because again, they're playing games on the phone, whether it be Fortnite for the younger kids or the PSs and everything else in the basement or whatever it may be. It's, and I've often thought that just a lot of the problems that we have, both with violence and drug use and everything else in some of the, mostly, underprivileged communities, just a little bit more of a concern or an interest in your kid's life. Not, you don't need to be the helicopter. Gosh, I don't wish helicopter mom or dad on anybody, but, hey, where are you going? What are you doing?
Paying attention.
Yeah.
Just connection.
Technology can be such an advantage too. And in that realm of, location sharing, and it can be a benefit. It's also another, I guess, notable thing is social media, and that should have a big, hopefully parental presence to say like, what's going on. But that has been such a big influence in this, younger generation, and it gets younger and younger and younger all the time of, when and where the issues start, because it's limitless, how much exposure they have.
My third grader just sat through a presentation on vaping at school.
Oh.
And so she came home, she's like, they're horrible, Mom. I don't even want to look at them. And I was like, good. Keep that. But I was like, you're in third grade, you're 8 years old. Like but it's reality. And, I think something that Brene Brown said was the opposite of addiction is connection. So just making sure like you maintain that connection with your kids to be able to have them come home and tell you that like we just sat through this. Like, oh my gosh.
I've often been a proponent of making sure that all your kids know that like when they go out and drink, that if they're feeling uncomfortable, that they can turn around and call you and get help to do that. And some parents are like, oh no, you don't want to encourage them to drink. And I'm like, well, I'm not encouraging them to drink, but I mean, I'm realistic. I mean, if they're in 12th grade, there's probably going to be a party somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's probably going to be alcohol and there may be some other things to go along with it. So let's just make sure that the kids realize that it may not be quite the safe space that we've got at Lotus. It's a safer space than being in in a room full of drunk, 12th graders that are doing stupid stuff. Look, the other thing I had on here is, you briefly talked about vaping and we talked about addiction. I mean, obviously that sort of goes hand in hand, in that, to kick an addiction, whether it's alcohol or drugs or vaping or smoking or anything like that. I mean, there's other, I'll say, non-prescriptive type treatment. I mean, we've got marijuana that's legal now in Maryland. I know there's a friend of mine's on a board to study maybe legalizing mushrooms, and I don't know too much. The psilocybin. And do you guys have any thoughts on anything along those lines as far as are they helpful, harmful? Don't know yet.
I think it's a big don't know yet. I mean, there's a few providers in the area, and we have spoken with ketamine treatment providers, and some people have great success. Some people don't. I don't think there's enough out there yet to really
determine it.
Yeah.
I think it's still too new. I mean, cannabis only just got legalized a year and a half, 2 years ago, so I've seen more harm than good, but then I've also had many clients who come in and, they're utilizing medical cannabis and they do extremely well with it and they're able to work on their mental health. So I think there's pros and cons to everything. I think when addiction's involved, it adds that extra layer of will it help or will it activate things that it shouldn't. So I've seen both sides of it. And I think one of the cool things about our practice is that we're open to it. We had the Mood Center come in and give us a presentation on ketamine. We've sat through on different sit-ins on, marijuana and things. And we're always open to and plugged into what's new out there. And if it works, it works. But if it doesn't, we're also not afraid to be like, hey, this isn't working for you. We need to figure out how to move forward by discontinuing this.
Again, that's meaning your client where the client is.
Yeah. There's a long history of psychedelic medications. I mean, this isn't necessarily anything new that we've been treating veterans with psychedelics since in the 60s and 70s as total guinea pigs. Go figure, right? So, I mean, I think that there is some really good research out there that shows treatment-resistant depression can be treated with esketamine and that psilocybin can be effective. I do appreciate that there are more guidelines and regulations around like rendering said services. And I suspect that that's kind of where we are right now in community is trying to establish like really good providers that are going to do ethical and conscientious treatment with psychedelics and kind of weed out kind of some of the misinformation that comes with it.
I'll tell you, as we start to wrap up though, just a quick question. I'll go for all three of you. It's really like the speed round. But when you wake up in the morning and you bound out of bed and you get dressed and you eat your Cheerios, what gets you so excited to start your day?
I'll go first, just speaking for myself. I love working here. I have, been in practice for almost 8 years, been a licensed social worker. And I think it starts kind of at the top and with like our management of this practice. And it's just, work does not feel like work for me. And I've always wanted to be in the helping field. I knew that about myself at a very, very young age. I grew up with a mom who's a nurse, so I, didn't do nursing, but
Right.
still, I think that when your job does not feel like a job, there is a degree of you love your life. That happened for me when I started here, and it's just, we deal with a lot with our clients and in this field in general. And I think that we have just a really good morale, and it just feels good when you're not stressed about.
I would agree. I mean, from the little bit I've seen here, Chelsea, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
You guys all seem pretty chill and get along.
I mean, there's a sleeping golden retriever in the corner, what I mean?
Okay, so now we've got down to it. This is why you're here, because there's Gus, right?
Yeah, I hang out with Gus a lot, and we go on a lot of walks around West Annapolis. I'm pretty excited every day. I have a good life.
Michelle, what gets you all jazzed up in the morning?
I think just piggybacking off what Chelsea said, just the environment. I worked inpatient substance use for over 10 years, and substance use in and of itself is just a heavy, heavy topic. It's a heavy, heavy field. But then you add the layer of inpatient on top of it, and there's a lot of death, and there's a lot of, people coming in who are at the lowest of the lows that they can possibly be. And, add into that an environment that wasn't really supportive. Coming here was like a breath of fresh air on multiple fronts, not just the agency that Allison has built and the culture that she's strived to create, but also you get to see the clients thriving. And I mean, when a client, from an IOP perspective, and even from a therapy perspective, when they graduate or they can start doing things on their own, or, you're sitting there in a group and you have a client who came to you and cried the first month, and then now they're about to graduate and they're just all smiles and they're working again, that's what really
That's awesome.
gets you going. You're just like, this is what it's about. And then to be able to come, walk into the office next to you where the owner Allison is and be like, hey, this is what's going on. And for her to share that win with you, it's just a cool experience.
That's awesome. Well, what about Allison, the sharing of the wind lady over here?
I was going to say, I'm not sure what else to add here, guys.
I mean, you've got a little bit of a different role here. I mean,
I do. Yes. And that the running joke is, does Allison even work here? What does she do? That's a great question. I think what helps get me out of bed in the morning and what keeps me excited is that we have a lot of fun here and that we get to see the lights come on. When you're working with a client, there's nothing more exciting than just kind of seeing that look on their face where they're like,
yeah,
they're like, oh, they get it. They see it, right? It's those small moments of insight and awareness that I'll continue to chase it.
Fantastic. Well, for folks that are looking to learn a little bit more about Lotus Psychotherapy, Lotus Psychotherapy LLC.com is the big long website, or you can go to therefugeannapolis.com. And again, Lotus Psychotherapy has an office out on Bellarive Road out in the Broadneck side of Annapolis, on the other side of the Severn River. Maybe it's the right side or the wrong side of the Severn. I don't know. And in West Annapolis, right on Ridgely Avenue. But I want to thank you guys for A, doing the podcast, but B, for what you're doing for the community. I mean, it's something that was not around when I was growing up, and it's something that's absolutely critical that we've got to take care of our bodies, and that includes the thing that's attached to the top of your shoulders.
You got it.
You guys are doing it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's Local Business Spotlight. Please make sure to visit eyeonannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinion. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you all the day's local news direct to your phone, tablet, or computer in about 10 minutes. It comes to you at 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.